us, and it will be an engaging session. Feel free. Okay, so let me just start. So welcome everyone to this session. It's an onboarding session, and we're going to speak a bit about AIDA Africa, just to know what the organization is, and then we will share some research pointers, things that we can reflect on as people who are doing research so that we can make our journey easier, and how to tap into the resources that are available. And then we will also have an opportunity I picked out four areas of the members who recently joined the club that they would like to be able to do in the next 4 months. And we can share ideas on how these people can, how can they work around what they want to achieve in the next 4 months. Because I believe even if you're seeking mentorship or you're seeking support, sometimes you still have something to share. So knowledge rests with all of us. So I think we have all something to share. So welcome. So let me just get on with it. We are here just for less than an hour now, and feel free to engage. Okay, so we will talk about AIDA Africa. So this is a monthly onboarding session. Every Thursday, second Thursday of the month, we have this. So just to quickly mention, AIDA Africa is an organization. I founded the organization, and the name AIDA actually is a duck, but a very resilient duck that can withstand quite extreme conditions. And I thought that is what we researchers, especially in Africa, we really withstand a lot, and we are resilient enough to go the whole journey, in spite of there being not too much support offered to us during our research journey. We still soldier on. So the vision of the organization really is to see a future where African scholars, who is you and me, we are leading in knowledge production. Research really is about producing new knowledge, is about adding to the body of knowledge, adding to what others have found. And why we do research is to really understand our world better and to continue adding to that body of knowledge. And I think that the aim is to really envision a continent, an African continent, where we are leading this, and also leading the use and application of this knowledge. Why is this important? As we have constantly said, Africa is one of the most researched continents in the world. Like, so much research is going on, our stories are being told, but unfortunately, the stories that are told about Africa and on Africa are largely not led by us. Sometimes we don't set the agenda of what needs to be researched, just because sometimes we don't have the monies that allow us to even study what is important for us. So if we are able to create environments and communities where people become slowly, through mentorship, through supporting each other, they are in charge of producing this knowledge. They can set a research agenda, and you don't have to be a researcher to have a research career to engage in issues. You can be sitting in an office and you're a manager, and in that management role, or whatever role you're playing in an office, you're engaging constantly with data, with information, with knowledge. How to use that knowledge, how to be critical about the knowledge that you're acquiring, how to be confident in how you speak about evidence. So that's why it's important that we are in charge of producing and using this knowledge in ways that serve our continent. So the vision has been always for AIDA Africa to create that environment. To be able to have people who are in charge, we need to have an environment that nurtures that. Sorry, someone is a bit unwell, Rose. So to be able to create that environment that allows people to be in charge, to be confident, to be competent, to be critical, we need to have an environment that allows personal real-time support and learning by practice. That is why you see in the journal club that we have right now, we really like doing activities that people actually practice. That's why most of the webinars are done by members. That's why we have things like critical review of research. We start up and write. We really want people to do things by practice, because it is by learning research through practice you get better. And also the personalized real-time support. Before we started as an physical group, we used to meet twice a month every Saturday on Saturdays. But then because of COVID, we went online. But we always try to have that personal connection. That's why we choose WhatsApp, so that anytime you can always send me a message and tell me, Aurelia, I'm struggling with this, and we are always available for each other. So our values, I'll just run through this, so then we can go now to the research pointers. Our values are very important, because for us to create people can lead knowledge production, who can lead the youth, we need certain values. One is cura personalis. It's a Latin word that means we have to take care of the whole person. People separating their personal and their professional. The researcher often is told to be professional, to be objective, to separate their feelings. But we always say that as a researcher, you're also a human being. You're not just a researcher, you're a parent, you're working, you're a community member, you have so many other identities, you have so many other layers, you have a spiritual life, you have a social life, you have your health, you have your mental well-being. All these aspects of you need to be taken care of. Otherwise, we don't want to have broken researchers who actually, and you see they say broken people break others, who go to the communities and break communities and treat communities like objects because they are detached from their mental well-being. So cura personalis means that as researchers, we have to constantly take care of our whole self. And that's why we had components of wellness, mental health, spirituality. All those are very important. And lifelong learning. As a researcher, you can never, and I'm calling everyone a researcher, just knowing that people may not have research careers, but a researcher really is someone who engages a lot with knowledge, with evidence, and is making life better, which is all of us. You have to learn for life, because our world is changing. Now we are in the world of AI. It's taking over a lot of what humans have been doing. We have to also know what is AI. We have to constantly evolve through learning, through knowledge. Then as a researcher, we have to be possible. When we are doing research, we have certain power that we will. You can imagine you're going to people and asking, who are you? To ask people questions. So it means there's a certain power that either the institution has given you to be able to do that, and we have to use this power responsibly so that we can know African stories. Because I think many of you, I do research. My career is I do research every day, and I've seen so many communities have been wounded by research processes, where people feel violated, where people collect data, even for their own, for their school, the way we are doing for school, but they even care to take that information back to them. Remember, for them, for you, it's to be able to graduate maybe, but for them, they were sharing their life experiences in real life. So they expect to know what's happening. At least, even if you cannot solve their problem, at least tell them, what did you find? What did you find in you? So people have felt very violated. So we have to be responsible. We also have to remember that we are telling people's stories. It's about people. Research is about people, things, animals. So that should be caused by our interest of graduation, of promotions, all that. At the center of it is people, is things that we care about. Then open exchange is our value. That's why we don't hide information. We share. That's why in our group, we have lecturers, we have professors, we have students, we have everyone. Because those hierarchies that I cannot talk to a professor because I'm an undergrad or postgrad, those are the hierarchies that have made us You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, those are the hierarchies that have made us never connect. You fear talking to your professor. Maybe they've given you feedback that you cannot understand. You don't want to ask. And the professor also is behaving in a way that they are untouchable. So those things, they just make our life very complicated. And we cannot nurture research leaders in such an environment. And then, as I said, learning by doing. So we have 3 pillars. We do research, mentorship, and training. That's what you see. Even the club is part of that. We have paid programs and unpaid programs. The unpaid are actually many more, very many, because we started that way. But to be a bit more sustainable, we introduced some paid programs. And then we have research communities, which is the Journal Club. I think right now we are at over 400 and something members. But we were thousands, but because we had not registered people, we had to collapse the groups again and register people well. And then we also do a lot of partnerships. We are now working with universities to support faculty to teach research in a way that is interesting, in a way that is motivating. Remember your research class. I'd like to see on chat. How was your research methods class? How would you categorize it? Was it a motivating class? Was it exciting? Just 1 minute on chat. How was your research methods class? If you remember, because most of us have to do coursework before we start doing the actual research. How was it? How would you describe your, and you can also unmute and talk. How did you describe your research methods class? Anybody? Did you?
I feel the classes were, I think to a great extent, it was like the lecturer was just ticking a box, making sure you pass the exam. I'm not so sure at the end of the class, the students left with a feeling of wanting to become researchers for life. And a lot of people consequently have struggled to actually complete their programs. Because they were doing that course because it was a requirement. As a course requirement, it wasn't even necessarily for the research. So even after that course, a lot of people like me have struggled to start our thesis.
Yeah, so I hear you saying first it's like a tick box, so there's no motivation. And then where you're left at is not in a place that you can actually do your own project on your own, because that's the transition that is not managed well. So in your coursework, you have been handheld. Yes? Yes? Okay. I thought someone was talking. All right. Someone is saying theoretically was not enough. And when I came back to make it practically, I struggled until now I'm learning. Yes. So there is something about how research is taught that is actually making it very difficult for us to transition to actually do a real research project. First of all, even the type of exams we do don't allow us to even practice to do a real research project. So I think that's important to consider. Sorry, my cat is misbehaving here. So that's important to do. So we are looking at really transforming the teaching of research. And now for my master's thesis, I'm going to be looking at that. I decided why not study it so that I can also study it as I'm also working on it practically in the organization. So I'll be studying the role of assessments. Okay, it's not framed that way. The role of assessments in research methods course. How can we do better assessments? How do we give better feedback? So the Journal Club is where you are, and where we all are. It's a WhatsApp page. We thought WhatsApp is the most accessible to most people. And we do shut up and write. This is where we tell you at least for 2 hours or 1 hour and a half, keep quiet and just write your paper. Then we have research webinars. So on our YouTube page, people have presented, and we like people to present, because another way you can learn something very well is by teaching it. If you teach something, because you have to understand it in a way that you have to teach it, so you have to do it well, you also learn better. So we tell people, do a webinar, we also give you feedback on your slides, and we give you a certificate just to really elevate and groom that leadership of researchers. Even at your master's level, nothing stops you from doing a webinar on a research area that you want to discuss with people. Then critical review of journals. This one now we want to even start doing trainings on peer review. How can you peer review each other's work? So that, because if you're able to review someone's research paper, it also helps you in understanding your own paper. And I found that sometimes people are very good when they're reviewing other people's paper, like they can see the areas of improvement. They can say, oh, this problem is not clear, the problem statement is not sharp. But in their own paper, they're not able to do that. But as you practice giving peer review, reviewing papers, you become better even in your own paper. That's why for us, we don't do teaching of research. It is using different tools, different activities to help. You're still learning research, but through different activities. Then physical meetings, we hope to meet in August this year. Then we have the 30 minutes mentorship call. So tomorrow I'll be up. We were doing this with Dr. Wangari, but she's not here with us. So 30 minutes, we talk to someone, any member, they book a session, and we talk about any research issue that you're struggling with. And I've seen people are really, the power of 30 minutes actually, it looks short, but it's actually a good time to discuss something. So make use of this so that if you're struggling with something, we can talk about it. Then sharing opportunities and also those thematic clubs. We also have the mock defense. This is where people have used it. If you're going to defend your paper, I don't know why that word was even used, defend. Why are you defending? It's a learning process. But for the sake, since it's called defense, we call it. So we can do that for you. We call a few members to listen to you present, and then they give you feedback. And because you've presented in the club, when you go to do the actual presentation, your nerves are calmer, and at least you don't feel so anxious because you've done it once. So we usually do mock defense twice a month. You just write an email. I shared with you the handbook. You just tell me, oh, Aurelia, I'm going to defend soon. I'd like for you to organize people to listen to me, and we will do it. You can do it closed, where it's just a few people, or we can do it open, where we invite other members to come and listen. So those are the ways we are trying to support members to really grow and receive feedback of their research work, because I believe you can also not improve very well as a researcher if you're not receiving feedback. Feedback on your work is very critical, and the quality of that feedback is even more important. Is it clear? Is it actionable? Is it constructive? So those are the clubs. Then we have the paid programs, where we have a group of mentors, and I'll show you where for 2 hours you can meet someone, a mentor, and then you just talk with them. You can have a Zoom, you can split the session, a Zoom session, then you share your work with them, they review it for you. And then, so we have that opportunity. And I've seen the people who've also used that approach. Maybe some were stuck with comments from the supervisor. They did not know what to do with them. They sat with a mentor, and I've seen they've been able to move. So, but that one we charge it because we also need to incentivize the mentors so that they can be able to do this, just something small, even for the internet. So those are the charges. We also have En Vivo, which is an ongoing training that we do. So those are our programs. This is how we are organized. So for now, we are not super profit making, even if we are a company, just because I think we're still learning what works, what doesn't. And for us, impact is also very important. And let me just go through quickly, because we are only here for an hour. Looking at, so we have research communities. So these are the members when we were meeting physically. We used to meet at different places. This is an SPSS class. We used to meet at the University of Nairobi, Kenya Science. Here it's Kenya Science, African Women's Studies. So we've really grown in terms of meetings. So we also do trainings. Those are the other trainings we do is peer review for faculty. The other day we were training Kemu faculty. They wanted to improve how they give feedback for their students, how they peer review for their students. So we train them. We also did, we train on publishing. We also train on issues of gender and diversity inclusion. All these I'm telling you so that you can also, if you want to be a trainer, you can also tell us, I can join you in training, because we also want people to have real life experience. So sometimes if I have work and it's open, I always invite someone to just come in, doing together as part of their learning, and is also a way for them to also earn an income. So we also do research and publication. This one, I was doing FGDs. This is the ones I was telling you, I invite people to come, we do it together. I was doing on FGDs. This is somewhere, and it was for a particular client. So this is what we do. This is part of the faculty we work with. This is USIU. So what we are doing, we don't want to work at student level only, at the researcher level. We also want to influence the system. And that's why it's important for you to always feel free to be part of this, or part of the mentorship, whichever way, and people to participate as much as they can. So we also celebrate wins, graduations. We are happy. Just to show you the board members who we have stood on for a long time. These are astute researchers, academics, scholars, people in their field doing well. And they were very gracious when to just, you can imagine when I was starting this, and I was a woman, I think that to have someone who is older believing in you, it really is something. So these are the people who believed, even when the idea was not clear. It's just like, I want to just create a community, and they were there to support. And some of them are based abroad, but I just love that they are also African scholars who are supporting other Africans. Then we have the advisory committee, also Africans, younger ones, both supporting different parts and mental health, funding, etc. Then we also have the admin group. These are now the people who run the club. Been running the clubs for people for all those years with Dr. Wangari, who left recently, but we are the ones who run the everyday. And most of the work they do, it's largely volunteering. So it's really a lot of work. It's a labor of love, but we love what we do. These are the mentors who are also part of the team, who you can see for 2 hours, and they can do great people, very kind. Sometimes they beyond the 2 hours, they're just like, Aurelia, let me just work with this person. So that's the team, which is behind working all this. And then we have different partners who we have partnered with to be able to do this, because you can't do alone. You need more people. So that's it about the organization. I just wanted you to have an idea of that, so that, sometimes you may think some place and then you're like, now, who are these people? There are people who've been thinking we are publishers, people who thought we are a university, okay, not a university, but a school, but we are really an enterprise, which is changing the research support and mentorship space for scholars, for different researchers, wherever they are, sharing opportunities and really doing the best that we can with what we have. So that's it for that. Unless there's a question on that, I'll give a minute. Then now we can move to some research pointers. Any questions? Okay, no questions. Now let's look at the research journey. And these are just reflections that I have to just share and invite also your own reflections. I don't want to speak alone for the next final 30 minutes. So for me, I see research as telling a story. And it's telling a story about people. And it's telling a story about our world, a community. Like for you, Mohammed, you said you're telling a story about stroke patients and the function of family. Is that what you said? The family, is that what you said, Mohammed? Is Mohammed with us? Yes. Who would like to share what story they're telling? Through your research, what story are you telling? There's a story behind all those problem statements, behind all those literature review. There's a story that you're saying, that you're telling. What story are you telling, Emmanuel? Are people here or they left? The way they say you leave your coat at the seat.
Okay, let me try and give it a shot. One of the areas that I have been thinking of researching, and I'm sort of sitting on the fence because now when I start to read up about it, I find that there's a lot that has already been researched in that area. However, I'm not so sure that the storytelling part of it has come out very strongly. And this is the link between, every year in October, we have Breast Cancer Month, and there is a lot of noise and information about breast cancer and how we can prevent it, etc. However, the statistics from the ministry, from Kenya Bureau of Statistics, show that breast cancer is still the second highest cancer for women in Kenya. So there seems to be a disconnect between all the effort that's going towards breast cancer awareness, and then people are actually not going in for early diagnosis and that sort of thing. So people are still presenting in hospital at a very late stage. So I don't know where the disconnect is, but there seems to be something that's falling through the cracks with regards to how the campaigns are being rolled out. So I'm just trying to find, what's the story there that can be told.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. First, I think out of the top of my mind, the assumption that awareness leads to prevention. That because I know I will not get it, or because I know I will prevent it. But between knowing and actually even going for self-exam or actually getting or not getting cancer, there are so many factors that are surrounding that. It could be how I access healthcare. It could be the food I eat. It could be so many things. So I think there's a story to tell. And as you say, where we get our stories from is what story have people already told about how come there's awareness and still the numbers of breast cancer are soaring. What have people said? Scholarly, of course, even through newspapers, you can always get this, but what have people said? And then you can look critically now at what they have said and say, but what story is not being told based on what they're saying? Is there another way around it? Sometimes you can even use a theory to be able to understand something better, like we can both study why are the numbers of breast cancer still soaring, yet there is intensive investment in awareness and breast cancer awareness issues. And someone can study from a sociological point of view. What is the perspective? What are the sociological, sociocultural factors that actually are within how people understand breast cancer? Another one can study from a psychological theory, use a psychology theory. Another one can use an education theory to say, look, it's knowledge and all that. So I think there's a story there that you can tell. You may just need to know what stories people are saying on that particular issue of why there's rise and there's still a lot of awareness. What are people saying? What then can you say in your work? Is it a different lens? Are you going to ask a different question? Are you going to use a theory to help us dig deeper and tell that story? So I don't know if that helps, or anyone else can also add that. Yes. So like, for instance, when I was doing my study, I did my study in Mukuru. And I was looking at why do children, for my first master's, why do children in Mukuru still die before? So I decided to focus 0 to 3 years. Why do children die before their 3rd year? Because a lot of studies were doing 0 to 5. But when I read the literature, I saw that actually most children die before they are 3, and even more before they are 1. So I concentrated on 0 to 3. So I asked, why are they still dying? We have investment in all these programs, a lot of NGOs. And so I took a social theory, which is social exclusion, to be able to tell that story and say, look, no matter how much medicine you take, how much awareness you do, as long as you marginalize the knowledge and of the parents, as long as parents' knowledge is not catered to in the system, is ignored over scientific knowledge and all that, you will not get anywhere. So they have to be part of this. And then I started looking at why is scientific knowledge in children care often elevated over the knowledge of other caregivers, and what has been the effect of that. And when I was doing my data collection, I went to the homes, and one of the things the mothers had been told is when a child has diarrhea, run to the hospital. But when I talked to the mothers, they said, no, when the diarrhea, you first assess the diarrhea. If it's not too much, there's something my mom taught me I should use. Then someone says that my child has, I don't know, a false teeth. There's those in the medical field, maybe you know, there's a way they say that children have a false tooth. So what they do, they use a stone to rub it off or something. And in the hospital, they were told, no, you should not do that. But in the caring ecosystem of the mother, that's what they do. And so they were doing it. And so the child would get diarrhea and all that. So I was telling the same story of mortality, but I took a social lens to tell that story. And it was really nice. I really enjoyed in this sense, not about the lives of, but I really was very motivated to tell this story. And because I felt it meant a lot, and I really invested a lot of time and energy, I published around it as well. So I think you can take a topic that feels like it's very studied and ask a different question using a different lens, and then it provides new insights. So I actually published 3 papers and a book chapter from that same paper, two journal papers and a book chapter. So that's the value also of seeing what story do I want to tell. So I wanted to tell the story of why children are still dying. And you see, it's very different. Why the idea of a story, I find it is important. It's because it connects you to what you're researching. If I just say the mortality rate in Mukuru are 80%, if I go with the language of mortality, I miss the story of it's a child who is dying. Why would a child not see their 3rd birthday? For me, that was so saddening. You know, why is someone at the peak of their lives getting breast cancer? You know, so that's when you put the human in that, it really centers you and connects you to your work. So the research I want to do now is about how lecturers teach research, how they do assessment. So the story is about what is the journey of a lecturer when they're actually teaching research. I want to understand their lives, their story of teaching research. Where did they even learn to teach research from? How does that impact how they actually come to class and all that. So that's the story I want to tell. And that's why I always say, for me, research is about that story. Even if it's a quantitative research, if there's a story you want to tell of people, and remember that so that it connects you very much with what you're writing. So it's not just about, I'm just doing a literature review. No, it's not a literature review. You're going to learn about other stories that have been told about what you're writing about, so that you can see how you can enhance your story or contribute to that particular story that has been told. So I think if people put it that way, research stops being this complicated thing that is out there, and then it becomes something that is more relatable. Right now, when I do research, I really enjoy it because I even feel sometimes like an investigator, like I'm connecting dots. This one said this, then this one said this. So it becomes very enjoyable. I don't know what you think about that, but yeah, I thought I'll just share my own experience of how I connect with what I'm writing. Any reflections of your own story of what you're writing? Feel free. This is we are peers in learning. It's not a teacher-student. We are peers.
Hi, it's Virginia.
Yes, Virginia. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Aurelia. And apologies, I came in a bit late, so I missed the introduction to the club. But I guess that one I can get later. Maybe I want to just acknowledge what you've just shared in terms of writing research like as a story. I think that is a nice way of looking at it. And maybe I'm more in the biological quantitative sciences, and sometimes we end up being very complicated and forget the story. Even I realize even when supervising students, science students, sometimes they are just complex and then you lose the story. So I think this is a nice insight and maybe something to remember as we're working on these different topics to see what is the story behind what we are trying to do. Yeah, so thanks for that.
Thanks, Virginia. Even when people are doing experiments, if they're doing experiment for a reason, maybe you're looking at the screening of newborns like one is doing. Behind that story is the story of children and why children need to be screened early so as to avoid some of those complications. That's the story you want to tell. And now when you put that, all these others are jargons which we have to put, but that it really helps you to even ask deeper. Like, what then does it mean? You stop now being very mechanical and become now part of that journey. So thank you, Virginia, for that. And I'll move on, but you can put on chat your reflection. So it's very important to know what is the story, why do you want to tell it? And so for me, I really want to tell this story of research, because why aren't students able to do their research project? Yet you got an A in your research methods class. I'm very puzzled. But when it comes to doing your paper, you can't even start. What is the disconnect? So for me, I really want to understand that as a researcher, it's for my master's, but even as a person, I really want to see what is the issue there. And I want to see that story from the side of the lecturer. Who is this lecturer? And then how do you want to tell this story? So the how you want to tell is the methodology. You can tell stories in different ways. You can tell the stories as numbers, as stories, as numbers and stories, and that's where qualitative and quantitative comes in. For me, I do a lot of qualitative work because I find it richer, but sometimes I also do mixed methods so that I can also see what the numbers say and what the stories say. So this one I've done it last time, but I'll just repeat it because we do this every month. For me to be able to tell a story, I need to have some tools. And we always tell people, you have to have tools that help you to have a story. One, you have to have a computer. How else are you going to be able to write your story if you don't have a computer? How will you know other people's stories? If you cannot have a computer, you don't have stable internet, how will you access other stories, other literature? Then you also need to have books and journals. And the librarian is a friend of a storyteller, is a friend of a researcher. Know your librarian. Even if you don't go to school all the time, you can be connected on the e-platform where you can be accessing your journal. Some of us are struggling to get journals, yet our universities have actually paid to access very good journals. So make the librarian your friend. Then to be able to tell your story, you need to know how to reference. How are you going to reference? Because to avoid plagiarism, you're not going to say people's stories are your own story. You have to acknowledge other people's stories. So you have to learn what referencing style your university wants and how do you actually reference. And the other thing you have to know is how to install some tools that help you to reference easy. Like you need to know Zotero or Mendeley. These are tools that help you to manage your references. Remember, by the time you're writing your research, it's almost a year and you have read a lot. So how will you keep all this literature? Where will it be kept? What if something you read in January, when you're analyzing your data in December, you need it and you cannot find it on your computer? That's why we need to use things like Zotero or Mendeley to help us reference quickly in our work and to also store, to have our own library of the things that we are reading. Then to be able to tell our story, we need supervisors because we are learners, we are learning. We also need other people that give us feedback on our own work. I feel for me, the role of a supervisor is to really give us feedback that allows us to grow and improve our paper. Sometimes it's not the case, but that's the role. We also need to have Turnitin, but really consult with the university about Turnitin so that you can check that you have not plagiarized other people's stories. You have not taken people's ideas and said they're your own by mistake. And then we also need to know what the institution wants. There's some time I was doing some mentorship and I asked the people, what does the institution want? How many words? How many what? We need to know what our institution wants us. So we need to know, to have the handbook. We also need to be aware of the deadlines. We also need to know, to tell stories, we need money. We need money. We need money to go to the field. We need money for the internet. So we also have to check, do I have enough money? How much will it cost me to actually do this research? And funding will also influence the type of research you will do. If you don't have funding, why go do research in Marsabit? Why go all the way and you will not afford it? It will be difficult to manage. So funding, your budget, your resources also determine how the breadth and the depth of your research, because you also don't want to do things that you will never finish. Then we also need a support system when we are working on our research, on our story, because at work, have you negotiated for more time? Have you told them that you're working on a very important story? So think of a journalist who is working on a story and see yourself there telling them that, hey, I'm writing this paper, I'm writing this story, and I really need some time. So organize with your workplace so that you can, and these things look simple, but they're the ones that actually keep you from not writing. Because if your boss keeps you throughout working, when are you going to write your paper? Do you have a reading and writing plan? When do you write? When do you read? It's when I have time is when I read. So this has to be planned for, because it doesn't happen. And our minds, of course, because we've not been reading for a long time, sometimes we get tired. So we need to plan it and discipline ourselves to be able to do that. Then we need to identify what distracts us from writing our story. Is it Netflix? Is it your friends? Is it your family, your children? What is the distraction? How can you navigate that? And then identifying a reading place. Do you have a comfortable place where you sit to tell your story? It's where you write in your bed until your back is about to break. And after your paper, now you have a sore neck, you have a bad back. Do you have a comfortable place? All these things may look simple, but they really affect how you write and tell your story. Then your many identities. You're a mom, you're a spouse, you're an employee. How are you going to manage all those other relationships as you're telling your story? Because they might interfere. We've had people whose spouse are very annoyed with their especially men annoyed with women. Like, why are you always on your computer? What are you doing in that computer? You've lost attention in the home. So we need to communicate also with our families early to tell them that, look, me, I'm writing this story, even be telling them what you're working on so that they can cheer you on. And so this is when I'll be working and all that. So this is just something to help you see what could get in the way. And then we can also look at what skills should that storyteller nurture. So a certain skills, I'm so sorry today, I'm just talking, but I think for the next month one, I'll make it very participatory. Sorry that I'm just talking. So what skills do you need to be able to tell the story? So that one was more about tools and the relationships you need to manage. This one is now some skills you need to have. Otherwise, that story will never be told. Reading skills. How do you read academic scholarly texts? Have you checked your reading? Can you read quickly? Are you able to read and get the point of the paper? When we were doing my master's, we had reading classes and we'd be given things to read. And then it's like, what was that paper about? And people had different answers on what the paper was about. And most of us were missing the core of the paper. And remember, if you miss the core of the paper, when you go to write your literature review, it will really affect what you're writing, because you might be writing the sub issues of the paper and not the core issue. That's why it's important to learn those techniques of reading and say, what's the main point of this paper? What is the main point? And we were really grilled on identifying the main point. What is the author trying to say in a sentence? In a sentence. So that's a very important skill. Otherwise, you will be reading papers and then you will never know what the paper is about. And when you write it in your literature review, you're not really bringing out what that person actually said. There's someone who actually wrote, used a lecturer's paper. And when the lecturer read, he was like, no, I didn't actually say this. This is not what I meant. So it's very important. And all these tools are available. Sometimes we have them in the club, but also go on YouTube, Google, how do I read scholarly text? How do I identify a main idea in a paper that I'm reading? Okay. And most of the time we encourage people, when you're going to read with a question in mind. Don't go to just pick a paper for your literature review and start reading. Have questions. Now, today I want to read, but when I'm reading, what questions do I have? Maybe I want to see what theories people have used. I want to see what methodologies people have used to tell this story before. I want to see what arguments, what are the debates in my topic? Like, what are the debates on why children die before they are 3 years? Okay, so when I'm reading now, I'll be looking out for the debates. But if you read blindly, after you finish that paper, you'll be like, no, what was I reading? Now, what was that about? So you will never move. So reading skills is very critical. Writing is another one. You have to really improve your writing skills. We wrote compositions and all, and so many things, but the scholarly writing demands writing logically, you know, the way you tell someone, if you want to go to Nairobi cinema, this is, you take route Matatu 1, go here, go here. So even in our writing, how is our writing? Is it logical? Can someone follow what you're saying? Is it written in ways that are clear? Is it your ideas connecting? Or you have this idea, then you remember, no, I also wanted to talk about water in Madare. I wanted to talk about what in Mukuru. So connected ideas, how you do your paragraph, how you use your active voice. Remember, when we were writing our compositions, we used to use a lot of passive voice. Then I went, then I did. But in scholarly writing, we are really encouraged to use active voice of what I'm doing and all that. But it's not, of course, in our institutions, they don't like to see the word I, but you can use still, the researcher will do this and this, but still in active voice. Also, how do you weave in different voices in your writing? How do you bring out your own voice? So writing skills is something that you really need to check how you are. And there are so many tools these days on how to improve your writing. And then how do you deal with feedback? You're going to receive a lot of feedback on your work when you're writing your story. Sometimes you're so passionate, then you hear this feedback, you're like, what? So how do you relate with feedback? Do you take feedback as a personal attack to your person, to you as a person, or is it a feedback to your work? And normally feedback is feedback to our work. It's not to me as Aurelia, who I am. If my work is not good, if something is not clear, that does not mean Aurelia is not clear, Aurelia is not good. No, there is a separation between me and the work. And of course, it's not easy, so that then you're not always taking feedback very personally until you cannot move, okay? So it's about the work, it's feedback on your work. And just remember, we are learning, we are students, that's why you're in school, to receive feedback. So don't take it so heavily in a way that you cannot move. Just say, okay, this is an opportunity to improve. If it's not clear, find ways to tell your supervisor, honestly, I do not understand what you need from me. I know some supervisors are a bit difficult, but find ways to also say when feedback is not clear. Then patience is another skill you have to learn in telling your story, because writing your research, you need a lot of patience. Patience to wait for those comments that will take 3 months. And so what will you be doing those 3 months? Are you going to be mourning the way your supervisor has not wrote the comments? Maybe you should now be planning your field work, thinking about other things of your research, looking for the journal that you're going to maybe do your findings. So how do you keep busy as you're waiting? So patience is a virtue that I have found. These are just my own reflections that I have found it's important to nurture in this journey. Even patience with yourself. Patience with yourself when you find that maybe it's taking too long to learn something. Just be patient with yourself. There's so much learning and unlearning when it comes to doing your own research projects. And that's, I think for me, that's the essence. To finish your paper is okay, but the learning and unlearning that takes place in between starting and finishing, that's the growth. That's the growth of a researcher. Then, of course, when you're telling your story, when you're doing your research, there are so many relationships you're going to be in. You're going to be in relationship with your supervisor. Someone you are not interacting. Maybe some of you see lecturers and run. Now you have to be interacting with your lecturer. With the lecturer, you will have 2 supervisors. That's another relationship. They might be pulling you on different ways. How do you navigate that? You are having relationship with your peers. Some are finishing before you and you're wondering why you're not finishing. That's also another aspect. You also have relationship with the study participants that you're going to be interviewing. That's also another important relationship that you need to nurture. You need to treat very delicately. So those relational skills, how you communicate, how you listen, have to be nurtured in you. And if you see you struggle a lot with relationships, just go online, ask for feedback from people, and improve your relational skills so that you can navigate all these in a way that allows you to finish. Then if you're struggling, if you went to the research methods class, now there are things you did not understand your research methods class, there are things you feel, me, I don't even understand how to do sampling. I don't understand read. I always say the best way to understand research better is textbooks. Textbooks of research are easier to understand research, and also YouTube. Me, I use textbooks and YouTube a lot. I just go on YouTube, look for people who I feel are quite good, like the lady I share a lot, and then I listen to them, and then maybe I go to the textbook, because journal papers sometimes do not address issues in a way that you can understand quickly. But textbook comes from definition, examples, and then now it becomes clear. So if you feel you did not understand some things in research, even what is a problem statement, go and read so that when you reach that part, you don't start struggling. And that's why we even connect people to a lot of research programs so that they can remind themselves. Like now people are doing the author aid course where people are learning a lot about research. So if you were not enrolled in these courses, be enrolling. TCC Africa also holds another course for research. Enroll so that you can sharpen those skills that were not sharpened when you are doing the study. Well, good people, I think we'll have to finish there because we have an en vivo class coming and the time is over anyway. But I wanted us to reflect on some of the issues people raised in the registration form, but I think this we can put in the journal club. People were talking about they want to be able to know how to publish, they want to have a deeper understanding on how to analyze, they want to defend their research. So the exercise I wanted us to do was to give them guidance. If I want to pick up a research topic, what things can I do to be able to guide me to get a research topic? But because we don't have time, we can just put them on WhatsApp and people can share their answers, because we also believe in peer-to-peer learning. So good people, that was all I had for you today. Inspire you to tell you that research is interesting. It might not look that way just because of the foundations, but just think of the story you want to tell, connect with it, and I know that will help you feel much better about what you're working on. So thank you very much. I'll give 3 minutes for questions and then we can finish for today. Or someone is not in the WhatsApp group? In the Africana Journal Club?
Yeah, I'm not in the group. Yeah, because I learned about this. Somebody just shared with me the Zoom link.
Okay,
so
let me share with you, then you can just join. So, okay. And also we share a feedback form. Okay. So how was it? What are your reflections from the discussion? I invite 2 or 3 people and then we can finish there. Any reflections? You can post on chat. We always ask for reflections because that's a technique of learning where you share some information, but then also invite people to reflect on it, what it means to them. So there is the link, one for registration, join the club, the other one for feedback. Okay, is there anything on chat? Thanks for today's session. Okay. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. Okay. Filling the form. Yeah, the angle of research and storytelling. Yes. Always look for the story and it will inspire you. So filling the feedback form, if you want to unmute and say something, you can do that as we now leave in the next 1 minute. I was actually feeling tired before we started, but now I feel so strong. I think sharing is strengthening. Any reflections, Nafisa? Sorry for picking on you. You can just say hi. I've just seen you now. Thank you. Learned so much. Are there botany researchers in the group? I have to check the list. I'll put it up again. We want now to have sessions where like people in botany can be meeting and just learn together, share what work they're doing. So I'll share the list with all the things the disciplines, and you can see who is there. Oh no, their names are not there, but at least you can see which disciplines are there. Okay, I know. Okay, so I put the registration form if you haven't registered, and just give us feedback. Feedback is what helps us to do better. So, hi Jacob, I've seen you've added me to your LinkedIn. Yes, we can connect. I always like connecting people on LinkedIn. So feel free, Aurelia Monele, let's connect. share opportunities, you know? Yeah. Okay, good people. Let's see 2 comments. Entomology too. Okay, let me just check what the list people had generated previously and see what areas people pulled out. Thank you. I also appreciate you all. Have a lovely evening. And I wish you all the best in your research journey. Let's journey together. If we call for activities, please participate. Like tomorrow, we have the 30 minutes call. If you want to talk to me about something, we can just have the Zoom together for 30 minutes, and hopefully it can give you some insights, and we can figure out together what could be disturbing you. So I wish you well. Bye-bye then.
See you. Have a good night.
At least you can unmute to say goodbye. Steve, eh? See you, okay. Okay, I'm closing.